Okay. All right. The time shows 9 a.m. in Wei. So I hope everyone is ready. We're excited for this morning or this afternoon. So let me say good morning, everybody, and evening to some. So welcome to APHIS's Academic Writing Workshop. And we are beyond thrilled and excited to have you, all of you, with us today. And I'm Shannon. I am one of APHIS's program assistants. And today I'll also be moderating today's workshop. So allow me to also read out some of our workshop housekeeping rules so that we are all aware. Let me read out some. Okay. So the first housekeeping rule is that active participation is encouraged throughout the workshop. Feel free to ask questions and provide insights and engaging in discussions as well. And you may mute your microphone when not talking. Please mute your microphone when not talking. And also please ensure that your speakers and your headphones are working properly so that you can hear the audio clearly. And please also use the raise hand feature if you have something to say, and utilize the chat box for sending questions and sharing relevant resources or links and connecting with fellow participants. And we highly encourage all of you guys, all of us here to connect with fellow participants as well. And please note that this workshop will be recorded for future references and for those who cannot attend this morning's workshop. And so before we officially start, I would like to invite all of you here to do this one thing first as an icebreaker, okay? Supaya nggak terlalu serius kayak gimana. So I would like to open our session with an icebreaker. So in the chat box below, please tell us to share to everyone here, how are you feeling today and how excited you are for today session on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 being okay, and 5 being I'm so ready. I'm so excited for this morning. Maybe we can just chat in the box that write your write your numbers in the box 1 to 5, and we'll see how everyone is doing this morning or this afternoon. Okay, wow, exciting. I see 5, a lot of 5, nervous and excited at the same time. So many 5. I see 4, so many 5. We're so excited. That's so great. So all of us here in APHIS, we're so excited to kick off another year of the workshop, but seeing your response and your enthusiasm escalates our excitement even more. Okay. So thank you everyone for your responses. So once again, welcome to the first week of the workshop. So we will have 3 weeks. So we have 2 more weeks. And today is our first week of the workshop. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Megan Hewitt, who is our APHIS Executive Director, to officially open the first day and the first week of the workshop. So I would like to invite Dr. Hewitt, maybe say a few words.
Thank you, Shannon. It's really wonderful to see you all here. Welcome everyone to the 2024 APHIS Academic Writing Workshop. We are, of course, very excited to receive such great interest in this particular workshop. In fact, I was just asking my program team how many people registered for the workshop, and the number at the moment is 334 people. So we thought we might see 40 or 50, and that number 4 times increased itself. So thank you everyone for your involvement and your eagerness for joining us here today. For those who may not already be familiar with APHIS, we are a nonprofit and consortium of 39 universities and institutions in the United States who are interested in supporting research on Indonesia. To do this, we offer a variety of programs, including research fellowships, public workshops and seminars like these, and support for research exchange between the US and Indonesia. This academic writing workshop is, I believe, the 8th version of the workshop that we are offering, and we've offered it in different iterations throughout the years, some in person, some all live virtual, and now in a kind of hybrid model with the short course, which we hope have the effect of reaching broader audiences. And with 334 responses for for signing up for the event. I think we reached that goal. And we like, though, to have these live sessions with presenters today with Paul Kratoska. Thank you for being here with us, because it really does deepen the conversation, not just watching the recorded videos on your own time, but really bringing your questions, bringing your concerns about publication and about the content of the recorded videos that you watched this week in preparation today. So we're really eager to hear how you received that material and to hear from Paul some additional tips and tricks for the landscape of international publication and getting published. I want also to speak briefly to how this workshop is situated in a few stages of a sequence of different kinds of ways of engaging in the workshop that I want to outline so that others might be involved in other aspects of it next year. So this virtual component of the workshop is part of a series of offerings designed to build capacity among Indonesian scholars. A portion of our participants joining us today also submitted draft manuscripts of current works they're trying to get published or develop. Selected participants of this group will then be invited to receive mentorship by our US consortium members who may share disciplinary or thematic research alignment with the submitted manuscripts. And this is one way that we really feel it advances the engagement between American and Indonesian scholars, and also really makes for effective publication strategies. So I encourage all 334 of you to be working on your manuscripts for submission next year, to potentially be paired in with some of our consortium network for some more disciplinary focused conversations. We know that our conversation with Paul will be, in terms of theme, quite broad and more about the landscape of publishing, but we also know that focused conversations about discipline can also be very productive for the development of your careers. So we really encourage you to come back again next year with your manuscripts and be involved in that way. Finally, I want to note that some of those participants, then the selected ones, will have the opportunity to present their work at our annual conference on Indonesian studies this year, that's being offered from June 18 through 22. It's an entirely virtual conference, so we welcome all of you into that conference. The window for submitting abstracts right now has closed, but it's a really engaging, interesting place to be able to meet with scholars in Indonesia and the US virtually across a variety of programs. So thank you for letting me plug the conference a little bit. Thank you all for being here with us, and thank you also to Paul, especially for your time and expertise sharing with the group. So without further ado, I'll let the session get started, and let Shannon lead us through. Thank you again. Terima kasih semuanya.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Hewitt. So come back next week, everybody, with your manuscript ready next time. All right, so excited. And for today's topic, we will dive into what editors look for and some current trends in academic publishing. And the one and only Dr. Paul Kratoska will be our speaker, or we can also say our mentor and our guide for today. And before I call Dr. Kratoska, allow me to introduce him to all of us here. So Dr. Paul Kratoska was a former editor of NUS Press, and he has published books and articles on Japanese occupation, the history of rice cultivation, ethnic minorities, full textbooks, and academic publishing. And he was also a contributor to the Cambridge History of Southeast Asia and Cambridge History of World War II. And he serves on the boards of several journals and is lead mentor for the Social Science Research Council Global Scholars Initiative. And thus, with a man of his sphere and his bountiful experiences, I am sure we'll learn a lot from Dr. Kratoska. So Dr. Kratoska, I would like to invite you to maybe say a few words about today's topic, and then we can move on to our Q&A sessions.
Okay, thank you very much. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
All right.
So I've been given an hour to an hour and a half, and I'd like to start the session with talking about writing and maybe after about half an hour to shift the focus toward getting published. Now, my understanding is that you have all had an opportunity to watch the recorded presentations. So I don't propose to go through that. The idea of these sessions is principally to give you a chance to ask questions or raise issues, talk about your experiences with publishing. So if you don't come along with questions, we're going to have a very dull session. There's one point or a couple of points I'd like to make about writing before we begin. These are all very simple. The first thing is, an article that no one reads is useless. The whole point about doing research is to share what you've learned from your research. Second point, editors don't want to publish useless things. Publishing something is an effort on the part of an editor, on the part of people who are preparing something to be put into print. And there's a cost in all that. And no editor really wants to go through that whole process for something no one's going to read. So your first question as an author, as you approach writing a piece, who is going to read this? And the second question is, why will they read it? Well, the answer to the first question, who's going to read it, is most of the world is not. The entire population of Indonesia will probably not read your article, with the exception of maybe a few hundred people. So who will read it? Well, basically, people who are studying something similar. And the solution for most authors is that they need, if they want to expand their readership, is that you're writing first for a particular group of people that study the same thing that you do. But second, you want to draw in people who are studying similar sorts of things. So for example, if you're doing a study on, let's say, education in Java, it would be really good if people doing education in other parts of Indonesia would read your article. And even better if people doing education generally in Southeast Asia or even broader would read your article. So one thing you want to do is to write for a broader audience, not just for a really narrow focused group. Then the question is, why will they read it? Now, the simple point here is people do not read academic work for fun. Most people that I know who are professional academics have a pile of murder mysteries or science fiction or something sitting around the house. That's what they read for fun. They read professional articles, they read academic work for a different reason entirely. What they're trying to do is gather information. They're trying to gather explanations. And an explanation, you can give it another name, which is an argument. And they're trying to get interpretations. What is the significance of something that they have read? And why do they want to know these things? Generally, they have two goals. They want information and explanations for their research so they can use it for something that they're studying or for teaching. So as an author, you need to consider two things. First of all, the content. And the content then is the information, the explanations, and the interpretations that you're going to provide to potential readers. The second thing is presentation. Today, the number of articles is something like 4 times what it was 20 years ago. And already 20 years ago, people were saying, I can't keep up with the material that's coming out in my field. So that situation has just gotten more intense. And so most people, when they look at an article, the first question is, do I have time to read this? What am I going to get out of it if I read this, if I invest my time? And of course, when you read an article, you have to engage with it. You have to come to terms with the content, or you're just wasting your time on that. So you have to spend time understanding what the author is doing. And as an author, what you want to do is make it clear to potential readers. This is what is in this article. This is what you will get out of it. And you want to do that at the beginning. You want to signal to people in the title what the article is going to do, in the abstract what the article is going to do, and in the opening paragraph. Because you're not writing a murder mystery. You're not trying to hide from people the identity of a killer, the solution to everything. What you're doing instead is providing a roadmap. You're saying, here's where we're going. This is our destination. And now I'm going to show you how we're going to get there. I'm going to provide you with information that supports my argument. And then people can decide, am I going to read this article or not? But this is the critical first step, is a presentation for a particular group of readers. And this presentation needs to be clear. It needs to be easy to understand. And if you can do that, then there's a good chance you're going to get published. So the publishing part is what we're going to talk about a bit later. But can I open the floor now to questions? And if
Yes.
just let me ask one thing. Are people writing in questions, or is this all going to be oral?
They can either do both, Doctor. Either they can
Because
raise their hand.
if people send them through chat, then
I can help you.
You can
reading
read them to me.
Yes,
And if
I can help
people
you.
want to do it orally, that's all right. But I think it's faster if they send questions through the chat function.
So, okay. So let's move on to our Q&A session then, everyone. If you have some questions, please, you can write them down in the chat box, or you can use the raise hand button to directly convey your question to Dr. Kratoska. Does anyone
And do share your
have questions?
experiences with publishing. I mean, good or bad, things that have happened that puzzle you, things that happen that disturb you.
Right? Does anyone have a question? We'll wait for a while. Okay, we have a question from Bu Ana Kristi Suwardi. So, ma'am, you can directly ask Dr. Kratoska.
Thank you for the time. Good morning from Thailand. Thank you for guiding us today, Dr. Kratoska. I'm not sure if my question will fit in this first session, but since, I mean, like I will just, ask directly anyway. So I have doubt in how to transfer a dissertation manuscript ethically into a journal article. As especially here in Thailand, it is kind of like trend. I would say that let's say you have a whole dissertation manuscript, 5, 6 chapter, and then you got to produce nearly 3 or 4 different journal articles. So then my concern is that, I'm aware and very much afraid of the issue of self-plagiarism. And as you know, that this day, all the full manuscript of dissertation is stored in an online library of the university. So then, I mean, here in the era of internet, so we got to do the plagiarism checker, this and that. So how to, I mean, I have no idea how to ethically transform or adjust the dissertation, one of the chapter in the dissertation into journal manuscript. If you think this question, fit better later, you
No,
can
it's fine.
keep it.
It's fine. I
Thank
don't
you.
understand exactly why you're putting this as an ethical issue, because it's your material. So it's not exactly an ethical problem. The problem, though, is that you're trying to take your dissertation material and make it into an article that people will read. And anything you write fundamentally answers a question, some kind of a research question. And I think the way to approach this is to think in terms of the questions you can answer. Now, generally in a dissertation, you have some chapters that are just there as background. You have to present some material that shows your committee, yes, I've mastered the literature on my subject. So one side of it then has to do with that when you're writing it. So it's only a few of your chapters are going to have original research. And those are the ones, of course, you are going to concentrate on. And when you divided it into chapters, there must have been a reason you selected what material goes into this chapter, what goes into that chapter. So go back to that chapter and think through what question does that chapter answer. It might answer more than one question. But when you're turning it into an article, your starting point has to be the question you're answering. And then you answer that question. Now, any fact at all, you can start asking questions about it. I mean, it looks like you're wearing something, is it black and white or something today? It's just a fact, you're wearing that, yeah. And I could ask you, why are you wearing that? But I don't think the answer is going to be very interesting. So what you're looking for is facts that when you ask that question, you get an interesting answer. And so you start with that. You just go back over the information that you have put in that chapter. And think of it this way. Information answers one of four questions: who, what, when, and where. These are factual. And so you can say, okay, here's a person who did something. When did they do it? Where did they do it? All that. But why did they do it? That's where you get into something interesting. And how did they do it? Maybe an interesting question too. So go back to your chapter, look at what you're telling people in that chapter, and then you say, okay, why did this happen? Why was this done? And then what was the outcome? Why would anybody be interested in this? And okay, let's just go back to this shirt. Now, sometimes people wear a yellow shirt. Now, most people, when they put on a yellow shirt, it doesn't mean anything. But I can point to 2 times, one in Bangkok, one in Manila, when wearing a yellow shirt meant something, it meant a lot. The EDSA revolution, right? And Bangkok a few years ago, you could get killed for wearing it. So there's a difference between why are you wearing that shirt and why is a particular person wearing a yellow shirt. And so the answer to you wearing that shirt is not very interesting. But you could probably find people you could ask that question, why did you wear a yellow shirt on that date? That would be interesting. Or why did hundreds of people wear yellow shirts on that date? So you don't know the answer, whether the answer is interesting, until you ask the question. But you can probably guess in many cases. You look at what you're telling people in your chapter, and you start asking that kind of question. And once you've got the answer to a question like that, okay, ideally it's going to say, this happened because A, B, C, D. As soon as you get to that point, you've got an article.
Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for such inspiration. Like, with your metaphor of wearing like different color means something else. Yeah, it's give me idea. Thank you
Okay.
very much. I appreciate that.
All right, thank you, Juana. Okay, let's move on to our second question from Prop. Prop. We unmute yourself.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Sarah Plati Fatumila, and I'm from Indonesia. Okay, before that, does my voice clearly and audible?
Yeah, I can hear you all right.
Okay, well, I'm so sorry. In my device, Mr. Paul sounds on my Zoom is very tiny or very small as well. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you can increase your volume.
I
Okay.
can't do anything from where I am, no.
Okay. No worries. Okay. Thank you. Maybe I want to share about my publications journey before I ask some questions. So my publication journey is start when I'm on the first year on my bachelor's degree. So yeah, I have many interesting to any topics like educations, technology, and then environment. So my academic background is basics educations on science educations, but I have interesting about STEM educations and then electrical engineerings. So and then agrotechnology, economy. So yeah, I don't know. I have so many interesting on my publications journey. So I do some collaborations with my partner in other majors and other faculty and maybe in other universities in my school. And then yeah, I have some experience when I collaborate with other people. So many point of view and then many what is this? Many interview and then knowledge and then yeah, I have a lot of explore more from this major, but it makes me confused when I'm on the final year student. So yeah, I just graduated on my school, but I have dreams to continue my study to the postgraduate to S2 maybe. But yeah, I realized that when I was in bachelor degree for the publications or the journal articles or research on my campus, especially, I didn't have any assistance about research or guidance or something like that. So yeah, I do my research by myself and then collaborate with my partner. So yeah, I don't know, maybe you can share or maybe you can tell me how about the research style or research experience if I do my research in what is this in other country, not Indonesia. I don't know, but uh, I I tell this about on my university. Okay, this is the first questions. So the second questions is how we can know the quality of our research or how we can measure our paper. So yeah, I think if I do some research, I think my thesis or my paper is very great, but I don't know that in some journals I got what is this? Yeah, I got some failed and then yeah, my paper is not accepted to join competitions or what is this grants or maybe on submitted on some journals. So yeah, maybe why maybe in point of view of the editors or how can I measure or how I can improve the papers more than expectations of the editors. Yeah, maybe for increase the quality of articles and I don't know. I can ask about it or not. But it is the third questions. In my university, I don't know. I think the university in Indonesia have a what is this? We must compete to make and publications. I think there are the most important point is the quantity, not the quality. Yeah, and it's real. So yeah, in my school, my lecturers suggest me to Rob, please do the publications, make a publications 1, 2, 3. So yeah, it made me feel like, oh my God, it's a lot of assignment on my university. So I don't know, but
Okay,
yeah,
well, let me try to answer some of this. I think,
yeah, this is the
okay, you have
quality
a
or
broad,
the thing.
that's all right. You have a broad range of interests. And if you try to break this down by discipline, you said, okay, engineering and so on and so forth. But I don't think you want to think of it that way because you look out your window, the world is out there. It includes nature, it includes society, it includes engineering, it's all there. Now, in a university, people break it down by subject so that you will get a concentration of things about engineering in one class. and something else in another class. But what you want to do as a researcher is you want to answer questions. And so your starting point shouldn't be the data that you have there. It's the questions that you are trying to answer. And so you can ask whatever question you want. And maybe it covers more than one field. And if you have expertise in more than one field, you're in a position to try to answer that. So I think what the way to tackle this is really starting with the question, and then you have to figure out, do people know the answer to that question already? And the problem for you as an undergraduate is that most of what you read and write, well, everything you read is something somebody's already discovered. Most of what you write just repeats what other people have discovered. What gets you published is something that people haven't said before. And the way you get at that is you either discover new information or you put information together in a new way. And so you have to be realistic about what you're able to accomplish. And maybe you were rejected because the content wasn't original. Another possibility, though, is that you were rejected because you didn't present what you were saying effectively. And what you need to do with that is you start with an argument. You start going back to what I just said. You come up with a fact. You ask, okay, why did that happen? Or how did that happen? And the answer to that can be an argument. And don't try and do too much in one article. What you're trying to do is answer one significant question. It has to be a question that people haven't answered already, and your answer to it has to be fairly clear. It has to be effective. If you can do this in Indonesia, great. If you can do it overseas, great too. Don't really have any comment about that part. So thank you.
So yeah, thanks for your answers, sir.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kratoska, for answering the question. And we have a question in the chat box. The first question is from Erna. She asked, I have a topic about the analysis of the presidential election using the semantic analysis. So would you please give your opinion about it? That's what she asked. Give your opinion about her topic, which is about the analysis of the presidential election using a semantic analysis.
Semantic analysis, that what she's.
Yes. Yep.
Well, I don't have any comments specifically about semantic analysis, except to say that it's the same answer I just gave. If you have some conclusion that people will be interested in that hasn't been made before, then that sounds like a reasonable way to approach this. Because people approach a presidential election in many different ways. They can count votes. They can get opinions of the viewpoint of voters on different issues. The semantic analysis then is something a bit unusual, but you have to start from the position of, are people going to want to know this? And maybe I think maybe they would, but it really depends on how you present the information, specifically the question you ask, because I mean, semantic analysis is kind of a broad term. So you need to get focused in on a particular research question.
All right. Okay.
Okay.
I hope if Buena is here, I hope it clears up something for you. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to our next question from Ibu Penny. Thank you for waiting. So you may ask a question. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. It is nice to meet you all. My name is Penny Hanggarini from Paramadina University, Jakarta, Indonesia. Thank you for your insightful works of materials.
Your audio is not very clear. I'm sorry, but
Yeah,
it's hard to understand.
Yes.
Just put this audio in. Yeah.
Again, that I really enjoy your videos from the materials. and I'm glad to ask this opportunity to ask you directly. You mentioned in one of the videos that we need to avoid jargons, such as in the title. I understand that this is for the clarity of the article, but sometimes there are some journal articles using jargons in order to attract the attentions of the editor or sometimes the readers. Usually they put it in the title. So what do you think about this? Can we use some jargon, idioms, or something to attract the attentions of the editor? Can you give me some examples to attract the attention? Thank you.
Yeah, well, every journal has a particular audience, and they're looking for articles that will serve that audience. Some journals are really very focused and very specialized. And if you're submitting to that kind of a journal, then the jargon that's used in the field that that journal covers would be all right. Other journals are appealing to a broader audience. So the journal that I edited for several years, the Journal of Southeast Asian Studies, it deals in various fields. So you'll have things on religion, sociology, economics, and what have you. And for that kind of a journal, you would not want to use a lot of jargon because the readers, a lot of the readers will not understand it. On the other hand, if you're writing specifically for an economics journal or a subfield in economics, then you use the terminology that the readers of that journal will understand, and you'll be fine.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bu Penny, for your question and for waiting. And can I ask Bapak Rico? You may ask your question. You may unmute yourself first and ask the question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Sharon. Good morning, Dr. Kartuska. My name is Rico from Indonesia.
Good morning.
I would like, before I ask you two of my questions, please allow me to provide you the context. Yeah? So on September 2022, I submit my manuscript, my article to a journal. Yeah. But I did not obtain any feedback from them. So I waited for 8 months. I assume that perhaps they are busy with the other manuscripts, with the deadlines. So I waited for 8 months, and then I decided to send a message through the text through their system, but they did not reply. So I waited for the additional extra 4 months afterwards. So it means in total 1 year, and they still did not reply. I still wait for their response. So after waiting approximately 20 months, I sent them again an email and said that I would like to withdraw my article. If you are interested, please inform us. Inform me. I would be more than happy to reply or to respond your comments or feedbacks. Yeah, but if you don't, then please also let me know. I give them an ultimatum. If within 1 week I still did not obtain the response, then I assume that they are not interested with my article. Interestingly, within 4 days after my email, my email through the system, they replied. They issued editorial decision, which in essence providing two observations from two different reviewers, which in essence suggesting for me to do this and that, but in general it looks like positive comments. Yeah. I have respond their suggestions diligently, and and it was submitted on February. So it means it has been 3 months. Yeah, 3 months. I have wait them the response. So I was curious to what extent that I should be patient on their response. Yeah. Um, my question is, when should I recontact them again, Katoska? And what message shall I send to them to expedite the process on one side, and but to say that in polite way on the other side. I would like to ask your advice on that matter, Paul. Thank you.
Okay, you shouldn't have to wait that long in the first instance. I mean, waiting a year is giving them too much time. Did they use an automated submission system, or do you just write directly to them?
They have open journal system, yeah. So I have to submit. After submissions, I obtain automatic email.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that.
All right. Okay, the first question is whether this journal, how do I put this nicely? Is this an important journal? In other words, if you get published in this journal, is the publication going to be significant for you? Is it a high prestige journal? I mean, you don't have to answer this question. That's just the first thing you consider. Because if it's a high prestige journal, then you may give them a bit more time. Just to give you an example, I know somebody who has submitted an article to a journal that's in the citation indexes, both the Social Science Citation Index and Scopus. And this person needs an article that is in those indexes to get through her promotion and tenure exercise. So she's up for full professor, but she needs this article. They've taken a very long time, too long. But if she withdraws it, she has to start over again somewhere else. And that will take even longer. So she's waiting and waiting and waiting. It's not fair to do that to people, but journals sometimes do. So there's no clear answer to this. If you look at this journal and you think there are other places I could send it, and the prestige of that journal is not enough that really makes a difference to you in the career, maybe you withdraw it after you've waited too long. Okay, now that they've answered, and so you've done the revisions, you've sent it back. Generally speaking, if somebody asks for revisions, it means they're really interested. So I think at this point, you wait a bit longer, but you shouldn't have to wait 3 months for some kind of response from them. It doesn't have to be accept or reject. They should be telling you, we're looking at this, we're working on it. And they should maybe give you an idea of how long that's going to take. So I would say at this point, in fact, maybe a month ago, would have been okay. You write them and you say very politely, well, it's important to me in my career that I get this publication out. You've expressed interest in it. Could you please let me know what I should expect now? Okay, so if you don't get an answer to that, I would give them maybe a month, but no more than that. But if you don't get an answer to that, or you don't get a satisfactory answer, then think about how important getting in that journal is to you. Because your problem with an article, I don't know what your subject is, but some articles are going to fall out of date. The information won't be as good as a year from now as it is now. So if that's a problem, or well, I mean, you can think through your considerations, but you just say, okay, what are the reasons I should stay? What would happen if I take it out and try somewhere else? And make your decision on that basis, because you've given them enough time.
Okay,
Good luck.
thank you very much, Katoska.
Thank you, Pariko. So we have actually lots of questions, Dr. Kratoska, on the chat box, but let me read some of the first one to you. So it's from Amrita. Amrita, she says she advises that we must write for a broader audience, right, in the very beginning. So could you please give tips to write specific topics to a broader audience? And she gave an example here, which is about specific local knowledge about water management. So could you please give tips on how to write on specific topics, but for a broader audience?
Okay, well, water management. We did I work with a small team and we sometimes do workshops. We did a workshop in northern Mindanao, and it actually had a lot to do with water management. And the thing was that the topics were universities around Cagayan de Oro, which is right on the north side of Mindanao. And so a lot of the articles were very specific to Cagayan de Oro. So the people that would benefit from those articles were maybe engineers, administrators in that particular area. And frankly, it wouldn't have been of much interest to people outside of the Philippines. On the other hand, water management is an issue all over the place, all over Southeast Asia. There's similar sorts of conditions. So the trick is you want to break away from the specific details of the place that you studied and make some kind of a general point. So what kind of general point could you do with water? Well, with water management, it's sometimes related to drought, sometimes to deforestation, sometimes to the water table and maybe too much water being extracted from the water table. So what you're looking for is that kind of an issue that may occur somewhere else. And so you use your data about the place that you studied as a case study. But the question you want to answer is a question about deforestation, maybe, and what the effect of that is using the case study that you've developed. Generally, with a lot of topics, you have two ways that you can present it. And one is you emphasize the local detail. The other is you take some higher level issue, and then that local detail will help people understand the higher level issue. So that's what you're looking for.
All right, I hope that answered your question. Ibu Amrita, I'm pretty sure Ibu Amrita is here, but if you have
Hello,
some
thank
follow-up
you
question,
for
okay.
the tips.
All right. Oh, Ibu Amrita is here. Okay.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right. Do
Okay,
you have?
thank you for
Okay.
the tips. I will use it in my next article maybe.
Okay, well,
Thank you, Dr. Paul.
I think people should be given my email address, and if anyone wants to follow
Yeah.
up later on,
That will
feel
be
free.
lovely.
Yes, we will share Dr. Kratoska's email address so that you can ask him some questions and then further. Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
And, thank you, Rita. Next, let's go to one more question in the chat box, and I'll go to our eager raise handers up there. Maaf menunggu 5 menit lagi. We have some questions in the chat box first. So it's from Faza. So Faza says there have been trends in the Indonesian academic landscape where the quantity of publication is held above quality, especially in regards to graduate students and lecturers, creating academic commercialization, which is journals and publishers, that prey upon this trend, that prey upon this need for publication. So I wonder how far we can go with this culture and whether the same thing happens elsewhere. Thank you very much, Dr. Kratoska from Faza.
I think there probably are too many articles being published. And the reason that happens is that people are in a situation where they have to publish for their careers. So the only answer to that part is there needs to be some kind of a change in what the universities expect. And I can't influence that. You can't influence that. What may influence it, we did a workshop a while back and somebody was there from Bryn and the subject came up about Indonesian journals. And the point was made that there's something like 9,000 academic journals published in Indonesia. And the person who was there from Bryn, he kind of had a sour face and he said, well, we have encouraged this, but we think it's gone too far. So I guess the only way that it's ever going to get cut back a little bit would be if somebody at the government level decides that there are too many. On the other side of this, though, I think it's important for people to have the experience of writing and publishing. And unless you have an article that has absolutely no value, I mean, no new information, no new interpretation, I'm not really convinced that it's a bad thing.
Okay.
End of
Thank you,
answer.
Dr. Kratoska. Thank you, Dr. Kratoska. Ibu Faza is here. I hope that answered your question. I see your name right now. So if you have follow-up questions, you may email Dr. Kratoska. We will share his email to you later on. Okay.
I have a
Right, so
suggestion. Actually, you're getting these things through the chat. And
Yes.
if we don't get to everything, you can just send me the questions. I'll write answers to them and you can circulate them.
Yes, we will. If we have no time, we will send the questions to you, Dr. Kratoska, and then we'll share it to the participants. Thank you so much. So let's move on to the ones who are raising their hands. Semoga nggak capek. So let's move on to Ibu Shaf. You may unmute yourself and you may directly ask your question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Katosa, Megan, and Shannon, for the opportunity. My question is very simple in a way to build my career in publication. I am a policy analyst in a ministry of ministry in Indonesia. So I have the question here. The first one is how we understand and provide outstanding analysis that answer our target audience in a journal or newspaper, popular article. And the second is, do we have tools or data to measure our audience experiences in reading our journal or analysis? Thank you.
If you're publishing in an open access journal, usually the journal has data available. The open journal system has ways to calculate, and you should be able to go to the journal page and get at least some sense of how many articles are being published, how many are being read, and things of that sort. I guess the really positive thing about open access, well, not open access, digital publishing, is that it's become possible to calculate these things. The negative side of that is that universities are using that data as kind of a whip to people, telling them they have to do more and do and more and more. I'm not quite sure what your first question was, though. So can you repeat that?
The first question is how we understand and provide outstanding analysis that answer our target audience in a journal or newspaper. Newspaper is mostly popular article in Indonesia.
So you're talking about two different things there, because if you're writing for an academic journal, it's a very select audience, people who are basically other academics. And one criticism of academic writing is that it's just a bunch of academics talking to each other. So writing for some more popular thing, a newspaper article, a magazine that's not an academic journal, is a way to bring ideas out of the university and out to the public. I think beyond that, though, it comes back to this point I've been making throughout this whole session about questions. And so there are academic questions that are not much interest to the public. And then there are questions that do interest the public. And so your starting point has to be to think about the questions that you're answering. And then the second thing is, there are lots of questions that you can't answer. I mean, everybody doing a research project, you charge along through the research and you think of all these wonderful questions that you're going to be able to answer, and you finish and you discover you can't answer a lot of them. You don't have enough information. So you have to be selective. Say, okay, this question I think I can answer. And when you answer a question, I mean, it looks like it's a fact. This COVID was caused by these things, but that's actually not a fact. That's an interpretation. It's an argument. So as you're doing these things, be sure you're clear in your mind. What is a fact that answers the who, what, when, where question, and that you can source. Now, sometimes it might be wrong because the source you use might be wrong. But when you're dealing with those questions, you don't take those out of thin air. That's not your analysis. That's just something you have found somewhere and you put it together. And then your analysis, well, that is your judgment. And you support it by saying, okay, I see these facts. They tell me this is what happened. So that's the kind of analysis that any academic can do. And whether you're talking about an academic audience or a popular audience, it's pretty much the same thing, except that the academic audience will have different sorts of questions and you'll be able to talk to them in a different way. Okay.
Thank you so much, Doctor.
All right, thank you, Worshaf. Thank you so much for the question. We have many eager writers here, Dr. Kratoska.
Go ahead.
So many
Go
of
ahead.
them. We still have time. No worries, everyone. We still have around 30 to 40 minutes. But if we cannot answer all of your questions, of course, we will compile all of those questions and we will give it to Dr. Kratoska for him to answer. So the next question, I would like to invite Bapak Iksa, the one who's raising his hand, to ask your questions directly to Dr. Kratoska. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Shannon. And hello, Dr. Paul from Pontianak. I am Iksa Mahendra Putra. I'm from Pontianak, Indonesia. I want to share my stories. Currently, as part of my research, I am examining the unique cultural richness of Malay Pantun in West Kalimantan. For your information, Pantun is traditional Malay pretik that is popular in Malaysia and Indonesia. The main focus of my research is on the preservation of Malay Islamic proverb as a reflection of the rich traditional cultural heritage. In this context, I am interested in understanding what editorial strategies can be used to make this research not only relevant, but also engaging for both local and international readers. And my question is, what editorial strategies can be used to present this research in a relevant and engaging manner? Are there specific approaches that can be taken to ensure that the material present can capture the interests of readers from various cultural and academic background? Additionally, how can this research can be made accessible and understandable to reader with varying level of understanding of Malay Islamic language and culture. On the other hand, this research must also meet strict standard of academic rigor and ethical research practices. So my second question is, what editorial considerations should I keep in mind to ensure that my research widely accepted and recognized in academic world? These questions are important as they influence how I structure this research. I hope that by understanding the editorial strategies and ethical consideration, my research can make a valuable contribution to our understanding of the cultural richness and tradition of Malay Islamic culture in West Kalimantan. Thank you.
There's a natural audience for that kind of material, which is other people who are looking at heritage and language. And so one audience for what you're doing is precisely that audience. I don't think that's the audience you're particularly looking for, but it's also an important audience because what you're trying to do is preserve something. And so getting an article or even a book into print where you capture things that have not been captured would be an important contribution. But I think what you're trying to do is to say you'd like a broader audience to understand this. And so again, you have more than one possible audience. So there is a broader audience that's interested in Islam. And so what you're talking about is one variant of a much broader set of traditions. And one way of approaching that would be to say, to what extent is the material that you're looking at derived from local traditions? To what extent is it from a broader Islamic tradition, or how does it fit into the broader Islamic tradition? So the Malay world has a long and very rich tradition of the kind of what should we say, the kind of literature, I guess we'd call it, that you're working with. And so what you're doing is pairing two things together. So one is the Malay world, and the other is this broader Islamic tradition. And I think that kind of intersection is really where your sweet spot is. Just asking questions about that. And as for the broader, I mean, if you wanted to say how could I interest people in Indonesia about this, that's one sort of thing. What if you tried to write for an audience in Malaysia? Well, okay, the Malay world is interesting there. What if you're trying to write for an audience in Thailand? Well, that's more of a problem because, but I mean, there is in southern Thailand, of course, but setting that aside, there are audiences that probably will never be interested in this. So be realistic about just what might be there. But if you're talking about the traditions in the Malay world, as opposed to the Islamic tradition, then you might find parallels in other parts of Southeast Asia. So that would be another possibility for you. I know I'm spinning these out of thin air, but I think that's more or less what I can tell you.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Paul.
Yeah.
All right. Makasih, Bapak Ifta. Let's move on to our next question from Ibu Anissa Shabrina.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Shannon. So, good day, everyone. My name is Anissa, and I am currently in Jakarta, Indonesia. So, first of all, thank you very much, Professor, for bringing this very insightful and wonderful session. So, my question is, what is your outlook on the trend of the artificial intelligence or AI that provides us with the opportunity to produce or even modify an academic writing? I mean, how to make use of the technology but still being relevant to the rules that comes with the academic writing itself. Thank you.
I'm surprised nobody has brought up AI before because it's really the hot topic. And I don't have an answer because it's still very new. I think there are obvious possibilities. One possibility, of course, is that most writers, and I take this, let's just say writers in North America, because I've edited a lot of manuscripts written by native speakers of English. And there are problems with it. People don't always write very well. And AI can make the writing smoother, more readable. For somebody who is using English as a second language or a third language, those problems are even greater. So AI, again, potentially can take a text that is not comfortable to read and make it more readable. So that's the first thing. The second thing is translation. So AI raises the possibility that somebody can write an article in an Asian language, have it translated by AI, and have an article that reads really well in English. Now, there are problems with all that have to do with the writing, the content of an article that's written in an Asian language may not quite match what you would expect in an English language article. So just how practical that is remains to be seen. The dangers of all this, of course, are that AI, there are all sorts of dire warnings about what AI can do. One being that you set it loose and you say, okay, write an article for me. And then people start publishing work that really isn't something they've worked on at all. But assuming that you're trying to use it as a way to improve your own work, there are lots of potential things that seem beneficial. Don't know beyond that, but that's at least some answer.
Okay, thank you, Professor.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Izzy, for your question. Let's move on to some of the questions in the chat box. So for Ibu Fita and the Pasenal, please.
Well, actually, I think
moment.
it's better to use the people who've raised their hands, because the chat box,
Okay.
you can copy them and we can do them in the future.
Okay, all right. So let's do that instead. All right. So let's go to Bufita then. Bufita, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, thank you for the opportunity, Miss Shannon. But before anything, let me know if my voice is clear in the device.
Very clear, very clear.
Okay, thank you so much. And hello, everyone. And hi, Mr. Paul. Vita Fatima from Indonesia. In couple of research I have conducted, I used to get the comment that the discussion was too simple and have no novelty. So yeah, I think I've realized and I wonder why it was so simple and not giving a novelty. So the questions are how to put critical thinking on the research or academic writing, and how to highlight a novelty in academic way out of the subjective opinion. I think the answers of these fundamental questions might be insightful for me to improve the analysis skill to be implemented in the next academic journal that might be written. Thank you so much.
One of the problems that was very serious in Indonesia years ago was that the libraries at the universities didn't really have a lot of the publications from abroad. And so Indonesian scholars found it difficult to know what was happening in the field. That seems to have changed because of online access to materials. Excuse me. So the important thing, I think, is that if you're trying to write for an international audience, you need to understand what that audience already knows, what's already in the journals that they read. If you're writing for an Indonesian audience in a journal published in Indonesia, it's pretty much the same thing. What kind of information, what questions are already being asked and answered? Now, in a lot of journals, you need to think of it as sort of a conversation, that people are writing something and other people respond to that. It may not actually be a conversation where they exactly respond by saying, okay, you wrote in this article, now I'm going to say this. But still, there's a kind of a flow of information, a flow of conversation. And you really need to understand what a journal is doing, what kind of articles they're publishing, and if there are these sorts of conversations going on. And if they are, then you ask yourself, what can I contribute to that? What questions have been answered? What questions might people be interested in hearing an answer to? And of course, like I said earlier, you can ask questions and not be able to answer them. So what you need to do is look at what you know, what your research material has, and say, okay, what kind of question can I answer? And has that question been asked? Would other people be interested in that? Part of this is you need to talk to people in your field, the colleagues, and if maybe not at your university, maybe at other universities. And one of the things I think that should come out of the APHIS workshop and the APHIS conference is that people should be getting to know their colleagues in other parts of Indonesia. So you can talk to each other about this sort of thing. You can say, okay, I have this idea, and somebody can say, oh, well, I know a journal article that talks about that. And then you go to that article and you say, okay, what can you add to this? We had this experience actually with some of the earlier APHIS workshops. And I remember somebody from Sulawesi who was working on a topic very similar to somebody from Sumatra. They'd never met. But the fact is that because they were both part of the APHIS workshop, they got to know that somebody else was working on a similar topic. So one thing you need to do is to build this network and come to a better understanding of what people in the network are doing, what they know. And that should help you with this kind of issue.
Oh, may I add a quick little note there?
Yes.
We, especially the comment about APHIS really trying to facilitate the ongoing conversations in each of your respective fields. That is a major goal of ours. And we know that this workshop is just sort of one entry point into being able to find the community that you each feel can give you the feedback on your writing and your work that is advancing sort of questions along the line of, is this relevant to the scholars who are in my field? Is this relevant to our scholars who are outside of Indonesia? So we do really encourage participation in our summer conference for that reason, just because it brings a lot of US scholars to it. But thank you, Paul, for making note of that, because, you know, I guess maybe just one final comment. There's a great need here among this community, a great interest among Indonesians to get published. There is an equal amount of interest among American scholars to engage more substantially with Indonesian scholars. And that's something that isn't always as palpable to our friends here in Indonesia, in Southeast Asia. The kinds of knowledge, the kinds of research that you are able to create is precisely what the world of academia is kind of looking for right now. And it's really just in the packaging that we all have to sort of polish our work. So in any case, I hope you do find your community in other events at APHIS, but do reach out to us if you're looking for where that community might be. We're also happy to help point you in directions, people who might be able to give you feedback on your work. Doing that kind of outreach is something we like to help facilitate. So do let us know if there are opportunities to help in that way. All right, I'll let you get back to questions now, but thanks for letting me say a quick note.
Okay, if I could just add one point about that. The fact that there are something like 9,000 journals in Indonesia is actually a problem for American scholars, because there's so much. And so the problem is finding the particular piece of information or the particular writer that might be useful. I don't have any answer for that, but it's really something that I think the Indonesian scholarly community needs to be thinking about, is how to make all the material that's being published in Indonesia more accessible, helping people identify articles that they would find useful. It's a major problem. Another thing that goes along with that is whether all these articles that are being published are being archived in a way that people can 10 years from now go back and find them. It's not an impossible undertaking because of the way computers work, but it's something that somebody needs to pay attention to. Okay, back to the questions.
Awesome. Okay, back to the question. So we have one more question. The one who's raising his hand, which is Papa Zainal. Papa Zainal, you may unmute yourself and ask your question directly to Dr. Thank you.
Is my voice audible, Miss
Very
Yes.
clear,
Hannah?
yes.
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you for this chance. And I would like to ask to Dr. Paul to my specific case or my own problem related to my article that I have sent to the editor for almost 8 months ago. And then there is no feedback anyway. So I am wondering what should I do then? At first, I contact him through email. Then he replied to me that just send your manuscript. Then finally, I finalized in 2 weeks. Then I sent back again. Then the last answer for him from him was due to the backlog, and then I couldn't inform you to the new information. And then it's all about almost 8 months from previously. So what should I do to my case? Because I am looking for the new journal that I would like to submit.
Well,
That's
this
my
came up. Yeah, this came up with somebody else just a few minutes ago, and okay, it shouldn't take that long, but realistically, a lot of journals have so many submissions they're having trouble, and they can't publish everything they're getting. So it's just a difficult situation, because when you think of this, that how many people in Indonesia are writing articles, just say Indonesia alone, because people to get a PhD are expected to publish something. And even at lower levels, people are expected to publish something. If you're a faculty member, you're expected to do research and publish something. So there's a huge amount of material. And what you're looking to do is to stand out in some way. Now, one important thing is to do with the presentation. And so you want to make sure that your title, your abstract, clearly show this is what I've done in this article. Here is my argument, the kind of evidence. Okay, you don't present the evidence in the abstract, but what you can say is, I did survey research, I did archival research, whatever you did to find the information. So you say, my argument is that this happened for this reason. The way and the evidence I have for it is I've done survey research of 500 responses, or whatever you've done. And that supports my argument. Now, that's where we're going in this article. Now I'm going to show you how this was done. So something like that needs to be in the abstract, something that tells the editor right away, this is what people are going to get out of this article. Now that helps. It doesn't solve your problem, but 8 months is really quite a long time. But so long as the editor is responding to you, then you probably want to keep this conversation going. Is this a journal in Indonesia or an international journal?
Sorry, doctor. What did you say?
Is it a journal in Indonesia, or is it an international journal outside Indonesia?
Actually, for the international journal that I sent directly through his email. He is a professor, by the way. Then I got that notification from him that due to the backlog, so he didn't give me any update again. So I aim to apa namanya menarik kembali gitu paper that I have submitted.
Yeah, well, if you have other options, the other thing to think about here, there are thousands of journals, You take international journals, and they're probably something like 27,000. And then you take more local journals. I mean, like I said, there are 9,000 in Indonesia. Most of them are not counted in this. When I say 27,000, I'm talking about Scopus and also the social science and humanities and so on citation indexes. So most of the Indonesian journals are not in those indexes. So that adds probably another 7,000 or 8,000 at least. But on the other hand, if you take any particular article, there's only a small number of journals it's going to be suitable for. So I've had people say, okay, here's my topic, here's my article. What would be a good place for me to submit it? And when I think about it, I can maybe come up with 5 or 10 possibilities, not hundreds, not thousands. So you need to be realistic about where would be possible for you to submit your article. Probably if you've gotten this kind of response, you need to get some answer about whether there's a real chance that you can get it published or not. And I don't know, if the editor's not responding, then you probably should withdraw it and then try somewhere else. One other thing I should say about journals, and I think everybody's probably by now aware of this, but there are also journals out there that people describe as predatory or basically phony journals. And you want to be careful about that and not submit to that kind of a publication, because basically if you do that, you're throwing it away. So be cautious that you're sending things to a legitimate journal. And I think in one of the talks, I've given some advice about how to determine whether a journal is a valid, legitimate journal or not. So just be careful about that.
Thank you, Dr. Paul.
I'm afraid that doesn't
Okay,
solve
if
your
I have
problem, but
one question, say thank you for your response.
yeah, okay.
Is it
All right.
okay if I have one question?
Fine with
Miss
me.
Sen?
No?
Sure. But if it's short, keep it short maybe. Yeah, because we have one more
Yeah,
question.
it's very short actually.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Is it normal if, for example, one of the editor that I would not mention in this forum asked to add international co-author in the article? Is it normal, or is it after peer review, Doctor?
Oh, that's difficult. I think it just depends on what another author could contribute. And it's really your decision. But it's right now it is your article, and that's important. That an article that you write needs to be what you think. It's got to be your ideas. And so you really need to think about what could an international author add to this? What could that author contribute? And why does your article need it? It seems to be like a bit of a strange request, but I could also see a situation where if the editor has some particular person in mind who works on this subject, and you might be able to cooperate, that could be beneficial. I mean, one of the things that APHIS does, I mean, not necessarily for co-authoring, but putting people in touch with American scholars who work on the same topic. And that can be really helpful. So it depends really on just what the editor is suggesting. But remember, in the end, it is your article. And so you don't want to give that up.
All right. I hope it clears things up for you, Pak Senal. Thank you so much for your question. Thank you very much. Okay, so we have one more question from Bapak Lutfi.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Dr. Paul. Very interesting presentations. Based on expertise and experience, I have a one simple questions. Is it possible to change my research questions in the middle of the ongoing research or based on the reviewed by the blind review of a journal? Thank you.
Of course it is. A research question, well, at some point, when you write an article, you've sort of committed yourself to answering one question. But if you feel like you have a better question, then all that means is you're going to have to rewrite your article. Maybe the whole thing, probably only parts of it. But yes, of course it's possible. I mean, you're the one running the show. You're the driver. So you can do what you want. But the thing that happens to people is that they start off answering a question. And as they write, another question comes to mind. Or maybe they start thinking, I'm not really doing a very good job answering the question I started with. So there are lots of reasons you might want to change it.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Okay. So we have a lot actually.
I'm happy to go on if so long as people want to continue. It's up to you.
All right, so we actually have a lot of questions. So I don't think we can cater to every single one of the questions that you all of them have today. We can see so many excitement. They're very enthusiastic. It's high enthusiasm, doctor. So we're very happy, very excited as well. But for those of you who have more questions, please right now I can give you time to type your questions down in the chat box so that the team and we can help to compile all of the questions, and then we can give it to Dr. Kratoska for him to answer, and then we can share all of the answer to the questions to you. So if you still have questions, please type them down on the chat box. I'll give you some time, but then while you're typing your questions, I would like to ask for Dr. Kratoska for some closing remarks for today's session and today's topic.
Well, this is very much an ongoing situation. I mean, we started doing workshops a bit more than 10 years ago. When I was director of NUS Press, I started giving talks. And what I discovered was that everywhere in East and Southeast Asia, and I've done this in Japan, Korea, Taiwan, Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, Singapore, everybody is facing exactly the same issues. People are under pressure to do research and to publish internationally. And very often they're being asked to publish in the same set of journals. And the simple fact is that even with 27,000 journals, there are too many articles being written for most people to get into the top journals. And I don't have a solution for this, but it's a problem that is a bit artificial because it's caused by universities saying to their staff, you have to publish in this set of journals. The outcome is that the really big major journals are rejecting about 90% of the material that's sent to them. Now, as a writer, you don't want to have to wait around a long time. Well, fortunately, when they reject a lot of these articles, they don't make you wait a long time. They'll say right away, within a week, no, this has no chance. And that was one of the things that surprised me when we started these workshops. We would ask the people attending the workshop, have you submitted an article to a journal, an international journal? Okay, yes. And what happened? 3 days later, it was rejected. Well, what that tells you is that something was so wrong that the editor said no. Now, it could be they sent it to the wrong journal, a journal that doesn't actually cover the topic. It could be that the presentation wasn't good enough. And so the editor looked at this and said, no, I don't see that this is going to work. It could just be that a journal has too many articles, and so it would take something really special for somebody to get into that journal. But there are many, many answers to this. But it's a problem for people in universities who are trying to build their careers and need publications in order to do it. So again, I think what needs to happen is that scholars need to be talking about these issues, talking with each other, talking with their universities, because the present situation is very hard to sustain. Academic publishing is going through a lot of turmoil. And what's happened is that a lot of the major journals have been taken over by a very small group of very rich publishers. So people like Elsevier, Springer, Routledge, and so on. And the economics of that is not working very well. On the other side, there's a lot of open access publishing. Now, the problem we're facing here is that the big publishers are charging a lot of money to libraries, and libraries can't pay it anymore. The problem with open access is that it does cost some money, and open access publications don't make any money. So there's a real challenge to this. And the fact that so many people's careers depend on what's happening in academic publishing means that it's something that has to be resolved somehow. Open access is probably the way we're going to go in the future. And there is this problem of cost. Now in Indonesia, fortunately right now, the costs are being borne, I think mainly by the government, but through the universities, through open journal system. Some of you may know more about this than I do, but the fact is that in Indonesia, there are a very large number of open access journals, and you don't have to pay an article processing charge to get into them. On the other side, though, these are not particularly prestigious. And in some cases, they may not actually benefit your career as much as they ought to. So there are problems everywhere you look. And as academics, you're going to have to deal with these throughout your career, but there would be the possibility that maybe with time some of this will change. And the more your university administrators understand about these issues, the better. So will that do for a closing remark?
Yes, Doctor, that would do. Awesome. Thank you so much once again. Thank you so much, Dr. Kratoska, for such insightful question. I'm pretty sure all of us here learned something new and is reminded of something within our writing capabilities and writing capacities. And of course, we would like to say thank you as well to all of the participants here who spared some time during your weekend to attend the first week of the workshop, and you could have do something else on your weekend, but instead you came here and you asked some incredible questions and listened to Dr. Kratoska. So thank you so much for sparing some of your time during your weekend. So once again, for questions, Dr. Kratoska for the questions that Dr. Kratoska have not answered yet, do not worry. We have an incredible team behind the scene who are taking notes of all of your questions, and we will share it to you once we have a feedback from Dr. Paul Kratoska. So once again, everybody, thank you so much. So before we close, please don't leave yet. We'll take a picture to commemorate today's session. So please open your camera. If it's possible for you to open your camera, let's give our best smile. So there are four pages.
Yep.
Yes. Can I ask
Yes.
for Jay?
Yes,
Yes,
sure,
thank
everyone.
you.
We encourage you to open your camera in 3, 2, 1. Smile. Once again, we have 4 pages. The second pages in 3, 2, 1. Smile. 2 more. In 3, 2, 1. Smile. And last one. 3, 2, 1. Smile. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, everybody. Thank you so much, Jane. Thank you, everyone, once again for coming to the first week of the workshop. We will see you again next week on May 18th with a different topic. So make sure you watch all of the videos beforehand. And if you have some questions, you can ask about it later next week. Okay, so once again, thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week. Thank you so much, Dr. Kratoska, and everyone. Have a great weekend, everybody. See you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Paul.